All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about a situation that has the entire world on edge: the escalating standoff between the United States and Iran. It's a high stakes showdown where every single move is being watched.
So let's just cut to the chase. The big question, the one that really drives this whole explainer, is this. Why in the world is the US putting together its biggest military force in the region in almost 20 years? And the answer? Well, it's a complicated mix of high pressure diplomacy and the very real threat of an all out war. And look, this isn't some slow burn political game. Nope. There's a clock, and it is ticking loudly. The source material makes it clear there's a firm deadline in play, and that's what's making this whole situation so incredibly tense. And here it is, straight from the source. President Trump himself basically put a stopwatch on this whole thing. He's talking 10, maybe 15 days, max. That's it. That one statement, it just changed everything from a political disagreement into a full-blown countdown to a potential conflict. Okay, so how you back up a threat like that? Well, not just with words, that's for sure. Let's talk about the hardware, because the US is moving an absolutely massive amount of military power into the region. And the sheer scale of this, it's a huge part of the story. And you've got to understand this isn't just a one-and-done deployment. No, this force is getting bigger every single day. We're talking more planes, more ships, more people, all constantly arriving. It's about turning up the pressure dial to 11 and showing Iran they are deadly serious. I mean, just look at this list. This is air power on a whole other level. You've got squadrons of F-15s, the super advanced F-35 stealth fighters, and the F-22s, which are basically the kings of the sky. And it's not just the fighters, right? You've got all the support stuff, the refueling planes, the radar systems that let this whole machine operate 24/7 over huge distances. It's a staggering show of force. Okay, this number right here, 2. It might seem small, but in military terms, it's absolutely massive. Look, sending one aircraft carrier group is a big deal. It gets everyone's attention. Sending 2 to the same area, that is incredibly rare. It's a clear, unmistakable message that you are ready for a major, major conflict. There are very few countries on Earth that can even dream of doing something like this. So let's get specific. You've got the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group sitting right there in the Gulf. And then you have the brand new, cutting-edge USS Gerald R Ford Group just next door in the Mediterranean. Throw in about a dozen other warships packed with Tomahawk cruise missiles, and what you have is this enormous naval armada that can hit targets way deep inside Iran. The source points out this is the biggest U.S. air and naval buildup in the region since the Iraq invasion back in 2003. Let that sink in. Okay, so you see all this military might, all these ships and planes, and you have to ask, is war inevitable? Is that the only goal here? Well, maybe not. According to what we're seeing, the main goal, it's actually about diplomacy. A very, very aggressive kind of diplomacy, but diplomacy nonetheless. And this really breaks it down to the 2 core choices on the table for the US. Option A, you use all that firepower for a direct military strike. You go after Iran's nuclear program head on. Or, option B, you use the threat of all that firepower as the ultimate bargaining chip to force Iran to the negotiating table for a new deal on American terms. And for now, at least officially, the White House is saying they're aiming for option B. This whole military show of force, it's being presented as the ultimate form of leverage. The idea is to make the possibility of war so real, so terrifying, that sitting down to negotiate seems like the only sensible way out for Iran.
And one expert calls this classic Trump bargaining style, right? It's all about maximum pressure. You create this overwhelming, almost unbearable situation, in this case by parking an incredible military force right on their doorstep, to make your opponent feel like a negotiated deal isn't just a good option. It's their only option to avoid something much, much worse.
But it's never that simple, is it? This isn't just happening in a vacuum between the US and Iran. The entire region is watching, just holding its breath. And there are other major players here, especially Israel, who have their own goals and their own fears that are really shaping how all this plays out. Yeah, this table does a great job of laying it all out. You've got the US, who wants a new deal, but is also worried about how much this massive deployment is costing every single day. You have Iran, trying to look strong and not back down, but obviously terrified of a full-blown American military strike. And then there's Israel,
Their wish list is long. They want to end Iran's nuclear program for good, limit their missile capabilities, and cut off funding to groups like Hezbollah. But what's their biggest fear? That if a war starts, those very same groups will unleash a massive wave of retaliation.
So that's the big question, right? If the US does pull the trigger, what does Iran do? Well, the experts don't think they'd be foolish enough to try and take on an American aircraft carrier head-to-head. That would be suicide. Instead, they'd likely go for what you might call softer targets. They would retaliate against American bases in the area and maybe even strike Israel directly. It's that kind of asymmetrical warfare that has military planners in the region really worried.
Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question. What happens next? With that clock ticking down and all these forces in place, where is this heading? And the honest truth, no one really knows for sure. And honestly, this quote from Gershon Baskin, a real expert on the region, just says it all. He basically admits that even the people who watch this stuff for a living are just as clueless as the rest of us. Why? Because the person making the final call, Donald Trump, is, in his words, completely unpredictable. So we're all just watching in the dark. So that's where we stand. And it all boils down to this one final question. Is what we're witnessing a masterclass in high-stakes negotiation, a brilliant gamble that's going to lead to a historic deal, or is it a terrible miscalculation, a dangerous game of chicken that's about to spin out of control and drag the whole region into a catastrophic new war? We're probably going to find out the answer very, very soon.